Willow Creek was one of those towns that felt frozen in time, a place where cobblestone streets whispered silent stories of entire generations, and wooden houses with flower-filled windows radiated a simple, welcoming charm. Every corner carried a different scent: fresh bread from Mrs. Ruth's bakery, strong coffee from Joe's diner, and the gentle fragrance of flowers blooming in well-kept gardens. Here, everyone knew everyone's name. News didn't come from newspapers, but from conversations on park benches or in line at the local grocery store. A nod, a smile, a quick word, that was enough to know how your neighbor was doing. Life in Willow Creek was a delicate dance between activity and calm. During the week, the back and forth of children heading to school, women carrying market bags, and men working in small workshops and farms kept the town's heart beating steady. But what truly brought the town to life were the events that gathered everyone, without exception. Spring festivals filled the air with colorful stalls and children's laughter, while the harvest festival in the fall brought families together to celebrate with traditional foods, live music, and a procession that ended at the old stone church. Speaking of which, the church was the town's centerpiece, not only physically, standing proudly in the main square with its bell tower, but also in the hearts of the people. Its doors were always open, welcoming the faithful and the curious alike, those seeking faith and those simply longing for a moment of peace. The church choir was more than just a musical group. It was the soul of the community. Every week, men, women, and children gathered to rehearse, preparing songs filled with hope, love, and renewal. Grace grew up among the green hills of Willow Creek, where the delicate epee trees bloomed along the fences of cozy homes, and time seemed to move slowly, as if in no rush to leave. From a young age, she was known for her gentle lightness, not just in her calm way of walking, but in the kindness with which she spoke, listened, and smiled. There was something about Grace that made people feel at home, even when they were far from home. She lived with her parents in a light blue cottage with lace curtains on the windows and pots of basil on the porch. Her father, Mr. Benjamin, was a carpenter, strong hands, a calm gaze, and few but always thoughtful words. Her mother, Mrs. Esther, cared for their home like a gardener tends a flower bed, with love, patience, and a wisdom that came from deep within. And then there was Tobias. Tobias was Grace's dog, a scruffy mutt with big brown eyes, funny ears, and a tail that never stopped wagging. He followed her everywhere, from walks along the lake trail to lazy afternoons lying in the grass, reading worn-out books and dreaming of love. It was common to see them around town, Grace in her floral dresses and Tobias trotting faithfully by her side, happy and devoted. But it was in the church where Grace truly seemed to bloom. Every Sunday morning and Thursday nights at choir, practice. She took her place in the front row, sheet music in hand, and her heart soaring. When she sang, it wasn't just her voice you heard. It was something bigger. It was as if the music came straight from her soul, touching the air with tenderness. There was a sparkle in her eyes, a peacefulness on her face, and a quiet faith that enchanted even those who believed in nothing. The community loved her, not just for her voice. Grace helped with festivals, cared for children during Mass, brought cakes to neighbors on birthdays, and flowers to the elderly on sunny days. She was made of small acts, the kind that often go unnoticed but are always deeply felt. Her room was full of little details, stacks of books, old letters kept in a wooden box, a guitar resting against the wall, and photos stuck to the mirror. She had a habit of writing down dreams in a lavender-covered notebook with soft, rounded letters, as if writing was the first step toward making them real. Grace didn't seek a grand love. She believed in loves that grew slowly, like the flowers she tended with Tobias in the backyard. She thought the right love would come when the time was right, and until then, she kept singing, because for her, singing was a way to love the world just a little more. Grace's mornings began early, with the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the house and the first rays of sunlight filtering through the lace curtains. But even before fully opening her eyes, her heart was already awake to the melodies. Only she seemed to hear. Since she had started studying music more seriously, her routine had taken on a new sweetness. Mrs. Esther, with her loving motherly care, would say that Grace's fingers knew how to caress the piano keys as if playing. Her own heart, and maybe that was true, because for Grace, every note had a color, every tone a flavor, and every chord felt like a sigh from the sky. She studied with passion. Sitting at the small upright piano inherited from a great aunt, she would spend hours immersed in sheet music, music theory, and breathing exercises. She especially loved exploring major keys, which felt like sunny days, and minor keys, which carried a gentle beauty like rain on a rooftop. She was fascinated by arpeggios that climbed like stairs of hope, and by the rests, so full of meaning, just like the sounds themselves. At the church choir rehearsals, her presence was a kind of comfort. She wasn't the conductor, but everyone listened to her as if she were. She knew how to gently guide, suggesting harmonies, shyly correcting a wrong note, smiling with her eyes when the melody finally came together. Her connection with music was so natural that even the shyest singers gained confidence beside her. Performances were magical moments. In the Willow Creek Church, with its colorful stained glass and wooden pews creaking under the weight of the congregation, the choir gathered on holy days, baptisms, Easter and Christmas masses, and special city events like the Harvest Festival. On these occasions, Grace was more than a singer. She was a presence. The young woman in a white dress, hair braided neatly, calm eyes, and a voice as sweet as the sound of a distant bell at dusk. Everyone remembered the day she sang Amazing Grace alone, with just a piano accompaniment and the reverent silence of all around. It was as if the song's words had been written for her. Many swear that in that moment, even the candles seemed to burn a little brighter. Fame was never what she sought. She wanted truth. That's why every rehearsal, even the simplest, was lived with intensity. She tuned her voice carefully, did vocal warm-ups in front of the mirror, studied the meaning of the lyrics she sang. She wanted the words to have soul. She wanted those who listened to feel a bit of the peace she carried inside. And among sheet music, rehearsals, loose notes, and full chords, Grace's heart began to tune itself to something new, something she couldn't yet name, but that was starting to grow gently, like the first notes of a beautiful song. Lucas arrived in Willow Creek on an afternoon of open skies and warm breezes. The family car rolled down the road lined with golden fields and lazy cows, the tires crunching over the packed dirt as if announcing a new story. He came with his own parents, Mrs. Helena and Mr. Marcos, who had moved there to take over the administration of the local school and the community library, respectively. The new house was simple, with a narrow porch, blue windows, and a plum tree in the backyard. Lucas, used to the hustle and bustle of the bigger cities he'd lived in before, felt that time moved differently there, slower, more human, quieter, and somehow that felt just right in his heart. He was 19, with brown eyes that seemed to hold secrets and hands marked by soft calluses from years of playing guitar. His guitar was his refuge. Since he'd received it as a gift from his grandfather at the age of 10, Lucas had fallen in love with the strings, the harmonies, the way music could say everything he didn't know how to put into words. He played beautifully, with feeling, with precision, with soul. He was one of those musicians who made melodies seem easy, as if they were born from the air. Though shy at first, Lucas had a gentle, attentive nature that slowly won people over. He knew how to listen, smiled sincerely, and had a calmness in his movements that made others feel at ease around him. He helped neighbors with small repairs, was polite to everyone, and soon became known as the boy with the guitar. Little by little, he settled into his new routine, studying at home, helping his parents with school projects, and whenever possible, walking through the quiet streets of the town, taking in the old shops, the benches in the square, the colorful clotheslines in backyards, and the sounds of a small town that seemed made to embrace. It was during one of those slow, late afternoon walks, when the sky began to blush pink and gold, and the breeze carried the soft scent of the flowers in the town square, that Lucas heard for the very first time a voice that made him stop without meaning to. He was passing by the small church of Willow Creek, a modest building of pale stones and old stained glass, when a sound slipped out from the slightly open door. It was a choir rehearsal. The melody was soft, almost a prayer sung aloud. But it wasn't the choir itself that made him stand there frozen, his hand still resting on the strap of the guitar hanging from his shoulder. It was a single voice, clear as running water, sweet as wildflower honey, Grace's voice. He didn't see who was singing, not at that moment. But the pure, heartfelt tone stirred something inside him, something that had been silent for a long time. It was as if those notes had tuned a forgotten part of his own heart. After that day, Lucas began to attend the church quietly. On Sundays, he slipped in silently, sat in the back pews, and watched. The liturgy, the prayers, the smiles of the townsfolk, everything seemed a gentle dance full of meaning. But it was when the choir stood to sing that he truly lost himself, or found himself. His eyes searched for her. His heart recognized the sound. In time, he learned the church had a music group made up of young people who led worship and special gatherings. A small ensemble that sang more freely, mixing hymns and Christian songs with modern, delicate arrangements. One day, while tidying the library, he mentioned to his mother that he missed playing for others beyond himself. She smiled and said, "Then go. Offer your music. Sometimes we find our place when we start serving with what we love." The following week, Lucas approached the group leader and offered to play guitar. They hadn't expected it, but they welcomed him warmly. The first rehearsal was shy. He positioned himself with the guitar alongside the other young musicians, and there she was, Grace, even more beautiful up close. Hair simply tied back, eyes focused on the sheet music, and that quiet smile, shy but radiant. When he played the first chords, everyone fell silent. There was something different about the sound he made. It wasn't just technique. It was emotion. It was truth. Then came Sunday. The church was full, as always on special services. Children filled the front pews, ladies wore their floral hats, and men cleared their throats before singing. The scent of old wood and wildflowers mixed with the light incense rising from the altar. Outside, the bells still echoed in the morning air. When the music group was called forward, everyone lined up at the front, and Lucas took a deep breath. Calm on the outside, his heart raced to find the right rhythm. Then, with a slight nod from the leader, he began to play. The song was simple, a gentle melody about faith, hope, and new beginnings. But in Grace's voice and Lucas's hands, the music became something else. The notes flowed as if born in that very moment. His fingers glided across the strings with precision and tenderness, creating a foundation that cradled her voice like a sound-made embrace. It was magical. Some closed their eyes, others let tears fall. Even the pastor, seated in the front row, fell into a deeper silence than usual. It was as if the whole church had stopped not just to hear a song, but to listen to a story told without words. When the last note faded away, there was a moment of complete stillness. Then the applause began, quiet at first, then swelling with joy and surprise. Grace looked at Lucas with shining eyes. He returned a smile that said everything neither yet dared to speak. That morning, something changed. It wasn't just a song, nor just a Sunday. It was the beginning of a harmony that could no longer be ignored. There, between chords and shy glances, a new melody was born, a melody called Us. A few days after the performance, life in Willow Creek returned to its calm and familiar rhythm. Morning still began with the smell of fresh bread wafting from the corner bakery. The ladies watered their plants on their porches, and the church. Bells continued to mark the hours like the heartbeat of the town. Grace, as usual, went downtown to buy fabric for a new dress she planned to sew. She liked Mrs. Millie's shop, a gentle-voiced woman who always offered apple cinnamon tea and somehow always knew exactly what kind of pattern Grace would love. Across the street, Lucas was leaving the bookstore with 2 books about musical arrangements. He was walking absent-mindedly, eyes drifting toward the sky, when he saw a scarf dancing in the wind. He ran after it and caught it just before it could fall into a puddle. When he looked up to see whose it was, there she was. Grace smiling. "Is this your scarf?" he asked, slightly out of breath, holding out the floral fabric with care. "It is." "Thank you," she replied, blushing slightly, her eyes sparkling with surprise. They stood silently for a moment. It was as if the world had muted itself, as if time had given them a gentle nudge to truly see each other for the first time. "You know," Lucas began, adjusting the strap of his guitar on his shoulder, "I'm still thinking about that song from Sunday. Your voice, it's like it's been echoing in my head ever since." Grace laughed softly, lowering her gaze. "I enjoyed playing with you too. Your music, it feels like it tells stories, and it makes everything more beautiful." He took a deep breath, as if gathering courage, and then said, naturally, "What if we continued this conversation over dinner? Nothing fancy. There's a small restaurant near the square. The lasagna's good, and the company could be even better if you'd like to join me." Grace hesitated for a second, not out of fear but from that flutter in the stomach that comes when something good is about to begin. "I'd like that," she said, with a soft smile that made Lucas's heart beat to the exact rhythm of a romantic chorus. That night, under the starlit sky of Willow Creek, the 2 met at the small restaurant, lit by lanterns and decorated with sunflowers. The conversation flowed as if they'd known each other for a long time. They talked about music, childhood, dreams, and the little things they loved: freshly brewed coffee, old movies, the sound of soft rain on the roof. Lucas shared how he'd learned to play guitar from his grandfather and how moving to the town had felt easier ever since he'd heard Grace's voice. She, in turn, talked about a childhood surrounded by songs and how alive she felt when she sang, especially now beside him. After dinner, they walked through the square lit by low street lamps, and Lucas gently took her hand like someone holding a long, important note in a song. There was no need for a kiss that night. Just the touch of hands, the comforting silence, and the kind of look that already knew something was beginning. A beginning full of promises, unwritten songs, and days waiting to be lived. And that's how Lucas and Grace's relationship began. From a chance encounter, like many love stories, but with one small detail that made everything different. There, love had already been written between the lines of the music. Lucas and Grace's courtship grew like the flowers in a spring garden, simple, spontaneous, and full of color. There was something calm and true about being together. They strolled hand in hand through the park, shared sweets at Mrs. Helen's bakery, and sometimes lost themselves in long conversations about the music they loved. But there was one thing Lucas hadn't done yet, something he kept as an old dream: to sing for Grace, just for her. One clear night, with stars blinking, like tiny blessings from the universe, he decided to turn that wish into a surprise. Grace lived in a charming house with a white fence and lace curtains. That night, she had already retired after dinner, getting ready for bed. She was brushing her hair in front of the mirror when she heard the first chord of a guitar from the street. She stopped. She recognized the sound immediately. A smile appeared before she even looked out the window. She gently pulled back the curtain, and there he was. Lucas, standing under the tree outside, guitar in his lap, and his heart shining in his eyes. Next to him, a small lantern hung from the lowest branch, casting a soft, almost dreamlike light on his face. "This one's for you, Grace," he said, looking up with a quiet voice full of intention. And then he began to play. The song was simple, made by him, with delicate words speaking of meetings. The first time he heard her voice, the way she made everything feel right. The melody was sweet, with chords that seemed to embrace the whole night. "Since the day I saw you, life changed its tone. Your voice found me lost, made my chest a guitar." Grace rested her elbows on the windowsill, her face cradled in her hands. Her eyes shone with light tears, not of sadness, but of that rare emotion of being loved so purely and truly. When he finished, the silence hung in the air, as if even the wind was waiting to see what would come next. She whispered then, her voice trembling, "That was the most beautiful thing anyone has ever done for me." Lucas smiled shyly, carefully putting away his guitar. "It's just the beginning," he said. "I have so many songs inside me since you came into my life." Grace hurried down the stairs and went to the gate. They embraced right there, beneath the full moon, among the scent of flowers and the blessing of the starry sky. And that night, the small town of Willow Creek slept lighter, because two hearts had found each other in a rare way, and now they knew this was true love. After the serenade under the stars, the love between Lucas and Grace blossomed with even more gentleness and truth. With each meeting, their connection seemed more in tune, as if their souls sang together the same melody. And soon, what began as a shy invitation to play guitar in the church group grew into something much greater. On the first Sunday of the month, the Willow Creek Church held a special celebration, bringing the community together with songs, prayers, and sharing. Grace usually sang alone or with the choir, but that day was different. Beside Lucas, with the guitar resting on his lap, she raised her voice in a soft song they had written together. It was a melody of faith and hope, born in the moments between their meetings at the bakery and afternoons by the lake. The church fell silent. The old ladies in the front row held handkerchiefs damp with emotion. The pastor smiled with his eyes. Children stopped fidgeting. It was as if the entire sanctuary had been touched by a gentle presence, coming from the notes and the exchanged glances between the two. After that Sunday, more invitations came. First, from the neighboring church in Meadow Hill. Then, from a school in Pine Grove. Soon they were being called to sing at events, community meetings, and youth gatherings. Grace and Lucas became a beloved duo, she with her voice of honey and faith, he with the guitar and the calm way of smiling between chords. The couple won affection and attention wherever they went. It wasn't loud fame. It was that admiration, born from something true, from people who touch others with their hearts. Articles appeared in small newspapers, compliments on the church's social media, even invitations to regional Christian music festivals. But even with their name beginning to circulate in neighboring towns, Lucas and Grace never let go of what had united them from the start: simplicity, faith, and quiet love. They were still the same two who had bumped into each other by chance in downtown Willow Creek, who shared ice cream on the park bench and walked hand in hand through the fields at sunset. At rehearsals, they laughed at mistakes, celebrated the right notes. When Grace was nervous, Lucas played just for her until her heart calmed. When Lucas felt unsure, Grace's gaze, steady and sweet, was enough to make everything fall into place again. And deep down, they knew. It didn't matter how many people heard them sing. The true song was in the way they loved each other. A love tuned not only in notes and verses, but in gestures, silences, prayers. A love that echoed gentle and steady, like the church bells at the end of every performance. The sweet fame of Lucas and Grace kept growing like a song that, though gentle, finds listening hearts wherever it goes. After several appearances at regional festivals, the most unexpected invitation arrived: a live performance on a national Christian TV show, broadcast every Sunday night. The show featured musicians and testimonies, and the producer, having heard the couple sing at an event in Fairview, was determined to have them on the main stage. When the invitation came, Grace fell silent for a few seconds. Lucas, eyes shining, gently took her hands in his. "It's just us doing what we love, together," he said. On the day of their trip, the little town of Willow Creek seemed even smaller, yet full of pride. The neighbors wished them luck. Miss Beatrice from church had sewn a new dress for Grace to wear. The pastor handed them a handwritten Bible verse to keep in their pocket. Even Grace's dog, Tobias, seemed to sense that something special was about to happen. The night of the show arrived. The studio lights were bright, but Grace wasn't intimidated. She was used to the soft glow of stained glass windows in church. But here, she still felt the warmth of Lucas's gaze, steady and calm, as always. The chosen song was a special one, a composition they had written together called Earth and Sky. It spoke of love and faith, of how two hearts could become a home for each other when purpose and hope guide the way. The audience listened in complete silence until the very last note. Then, before the applause could begin, Lucas signaled to the host, who gave a knowing smile. Lucas turned to the crowd, took the microphone and looked at Grace, eyes glistening with tears. "There's something I've been saving for this moment," he began, his voice trembling with emotion. "Grace, I came to this town by chance, or at least I thought it was by chance. But God brought me here to find you. Your voice tuned my life. Your gentle spirit taught me about true love. And today, in front of everyone, but most importantly, in front of you, I want to ask a question my heart has been rehearsing for so long." He knelt down, pulled a small box from his pocket, and opened it carefully. Inside was a ring, engraved, with a tiny musical note and a pale blue stone at the center, just like the skies of Willow Creek on spring mornings. "Grace, will you marry me?" Emotion swept through the studio in an instant. The audience held its breath. The host wiped away a tear. And Grace laughed, cried, brought her hands to her face, and answered with a heart overflowing, "Yes, yes, Lucas, I will." They embraced as the applause erupted. The lights seemed brighter, and the unseen bells of their little church in Willow Creek rang in the hearts of everyone watching. That night, millions witnessed the song of a true love. And though the couple now had a new road ahead, with more songs, new stages, and perhaps even an album to record, Lucas and Grace knew that the greatest applause was always found in each other's eyes. There, on that glowing stage, the next verse of the melody that brought them together had begun. A verse made of promises, of faith, and of a love meant to last until the final chord of life. After the nationally televised proposal, the news spread like a sweet breeze through the mountains surrounding Willow Creek. Neighboring towns spoke joyfully about the couple who had touched hearts with their music and faith. But for Lucas and Grace, fame was never the goal. What truly mattered was coming back home and building a life together in the simple, love-filled way they had always dreamed of. The wedding planning began even on the way back. Grace, with her little notebook resting on her lap, doodled flowers, scribbled lyrics, and imagined colors. Lucas, driving with one hand and holding hers with the other, simply smiled as he watched her dream. In the small church where it all began, the choir rehearsals took on a new glow. The women of the community gathered to decorate the pews with lavender sprigs and white ribbons. Grace's wedding dress was sewn by the same lady who had first seen her sing at the age of 8. And the cake, of course, was made by Mrs. Evelyn, who swore she had added a pinch of cinnamon and a generous measure of blessings. On the big day, the sky was clear, with soft clouds gently decorating the morning. The church was adorned with flowers from Grace's own garden. Every detail had a personal touch. The invitations were handwritten, the pews were adorned with little notes of gratitude for the guests, and even Tobias, Grace's dog, wore a blue ribbon around his neck. Lucas arrived first, nervous, yet with the calm gaze of someone who knows they are exactly where they're meant to be. He wore a light gray suit, simple, elegant, with a small white flower pinned to his chest. His hands, which had held so many chords, trembled slightly as they rested beside the guitar leaning next to him. When the church doors opened, everyone turned, and there she was. Grace walked down the aisle in a light, laced dress, a nearly transparent veil flowing behind her. In her eyes, the glow of someone who knows love in its purest form. Lucas smiled, tears streaming down his cheeks, and the song that had always lived between them paused for just a moment, a silence full of meaning. After their heartfelt vows, Lucas picked up the guitar. He looked at Grace, who nodded gently with a smile. And before all who were present, they sang the song they had written especially for that moment, Springtime Promise. The lyrics spoke of roots and sky, of rain and blossoms, of how love can bloom even in the most unlikely soil when watered with patience, honesty, and faith. The melody was soft, embracing, and in that moment, not a single heart in the room remained untouched. The guests cried, smiled, and even the old pastor discreetly wiped his eyes behind his glasses. When the final note echoed through the church, walls, the silence turned into applause, into laughter, into joy. Lucas and Grace's wedding wasn't just beautiful, it was unforgettable, because more than flowers, dresses, and songs, it was the meeting of two souls. A yes that had traveled through days, through melodies, through paths, and found a home where true love always blooms. In the heart of the one you choose day after day. And so, among petals, chords, and promises, Lucas and Grace began their new song, now as husband and wife. And they lived happily with music in their souls and faith in their hearts. Because when love is true, it sings even in the silence, and it lasts forever.